welcome. Tonight we are reading The Adventure of the Speckled Band by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. So you've probably heard of Sherlock Holmes, and you've probably heard of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. To give you a little bit of backstory on Conan Doyle, he was born in 1859 in Edinburgh, Scotland, and he is the creator of one of the most well-known detectives in English fiction, Sherlock Holmes. Sherlock Holmes first appeared in A Study in Scarlet and is a cold, calculating, and logical detective, and the world's first and only consulting detective. He died in The Final Problem, but through public clamor and outcry, he was brought back to life to continue adventuring, which is kind of an indication of his popularity. It's kind of interesting. So Doyle also used his medical knowledge in his stories, as he had graduated with a Bachelor's of Medicine and a Mastery of Surgery qualifications from Edinburgh in 1881 and an MD in 1885. In fact, one of his professors, Dr. Joseph Bell, was a heavy inspiration for his deductive detective. Dr. Bell would use the tiniest details about a patient to construct a diagnosis, which greatly impressed Conan Doyle. So, that's a little bit about the author. The story reading tonight is The Adventure of the Speckled Band. In this story, Helen Stoner rouses Holmes and Watson from their sleep and lays down a terrifying tale about her late sister, the strange occurrences surrounding her death, and the disturbingly similar occurrences that have been happening to her. So, last week we heard all about these strange occurrences, and Helen explained a lot about it, the weird, disturbing things that happened to her sister and are now happening to her. And now we finally meet Dr. Roylott. He's quite a character. So, with all that out of the way, let's get into the story, shall we? The Adventure of the Speckled Band by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. "One moment," said Holmes. "Are you sure about this whistle and metallic sound? Could you swear to it?" "That was what the county coroner asked me at the inquiry. It is my strong impression that I heard it, and yet, among the crash of the gale and the creaking of an old house, I may possibly have been deceived. Was your sister dressed?" "No, she was in her nightdress. In her right hand was found the charred stump of a match, and in her left a matchbox, showing that she had struck a light and looked about her when the alarm took place. That is important. And what conclusions did the coroner come to?" "He investigated the case with great care, for Dr. Roylott's conduct had long been notorious in the county, but he was unable to find any satisfactory cause of death. My evidence showed that the door had been fastened upon the inner side, and the windows were blocked by old-fashioned shutters with broad iron bars, which were secured every night. The walls were carefully sounded and were shown to be quite solid all round, and the flooring was also thoroughly examined with the same result. The chimney is wide, but it is barred up by 4 large staples. It is certain, therefore, that my sister was quite alone when she met her end. Besides, there were no marks of any violence upon her." "How about poison?" "The doctors examined her for it, but without success." "What do you think this unfortunate lady died of, then?" "It is my belief that she died of pure fear and nervous shock, though what it is that frightened her I cannot imagine." "Were there wanderers in the plantation at the time?" "Yes, there are nearly always some there." "And what did you gather from this allusion to a band, a speckled band?" "Sometimes I have thought that it was merely the wild talk of delirium. Sometimes it may have referred to some band of people, perhaps to those very wanderers in the plantation. I do not know whether the spotted handkerchiefs which so many of them wear over their heads might have suggested the strange adjective which she used." Holmes shook his head like a man who is far from being satisfied. "These are very deep waters," said he. "Pray, go on with your narrative." 2 years have passed since then, and my life has been until lately lonelier than ever. A month ago, however, a dear friend, whom I have known for many years, has done me the honor to ask my hand in marriage. His name is Armitage, Percy Armitage, the second son of Mr. Armitage of Crane Water, near Reading. My stepfather has offered no opposition to the match, and we are to be married in the course of the spring. 2 days ago, some repairs were started in the west wing of the building, and my bedroom wall has been pierced, so that I have had to move into the chamber in which my sister died, and to sleep in the very bed in which she slept. Imagine then my thrill of terror when last night, as I lay awake, thinking over her terrible fate, I suddenly heard in the silence of the night the low whistle which had been the herald of her own death. I sprang up and lit their lamp, but nothing was to be seen in the room. I was too shaken to go to bed again, however, so I dressed, and as soon as it was daylight I slipped down, got a dog-cart at the Crown Inn, which is opposite, and drove to Leatherhead, from whence I have come on this morning with the one object of seeing you and asking your advice. "You've done wisely," said my friend, "but have you told me all?" "Yes, all." "Miss Roylott, you have not. You are screening your stepfather." "Why? What do you mean?" For answer, Holmes pushed back the frill of black lace which fringed the hand that lay upon our visitor's knee. 5 little livid spots, the marks of 4 fingers and a thumb, were printed upon the white wrist. "You have been cruelly used," said Holmes. The lady colored deeply and covered over her injured wrist. "He is a hard man," she said, "and perhaps he hardly knows his own strength." There was a long silence, during which Holmes leaned his chin upon his hands and stared into the crackling fire. "This is a very deep business," he said at last. "There are 1,000 details which I should desire to know before I decide upon our course of action. Yet we have not a moment to lose. If we were to come to Stoke Moran today, would it be possible for us to see over these rooms without the knowledge of your stepfather? As it happens, he spoke of coming into town today upon some important business. It is probable that he will be away all day, and that there will be nothing to disturb you. We have a housekeeper now, but she is old and foolish, and I could easily get her out of the way." "Excellent! You are not averse to this trip, Watson?" "By no means." "Then we shall both come. What are you going to do yourself?" "I have 1 or 2 things which I would wish to do now that I am in town, but I shall return by the 12 o'clock train, so as to be there in time for your coming." "And you may expect us early in the afternoon." "I have myself some small business matters to attend to. Will you not wait and breakfast?" "No, I must go. My heart is lightened already since I have confided my trouble to you. I shall look forward to seeing you again this afternoon." She dropped her thick black veil over her face and glided from the room. "And what do you think of all this, Watson?" asked Sherlock Holmes, leaning back in his chair. "It seems to me to be a most dark and sinister business. Dark enough and sinister enough. Yet, if the lady is correct in saying that the flooring and walls are sound, and that the door, window, and chimney are impassable, then her sister must have been undoubtedly alone when she met her mysterious end. What becomes then of those nocturnal whistles, and what of the very peculiar words of the dying woman? I cannot think. When you combine the ideas of whistles at night, the presence of a band of wanderers who are on intimate terms with this old doctor, the fact that we have every reason to believe that the doctor has an interest in preventing his stepdaughter's marriage, the dying allusion to a band, and finally the fact that Miss Helen Stoner heard a metallic clang, which might have been caused by one of the metal bars that secured the shutters falling back into its place, I think there is good ground to think that the mystery may be cleared along those lines." "But what then did the wanderers do?" "I cannot imagine." "I see many objections to any such theory." "And so do I. It is precisely for that reason that we are going to Stoke Moran today. I want to see whether the objections are fatal, or if they may be explained away. But what in the name of the devil—" The ejaculation had been drawn from my companion by the fact that our door had been suddenly dashed open, and that a huge man had framed himself in the aperture. His costume was a peculiar mixture of the professional and of the agricultural, having a black top hat, a long frock coat, and a pair of high gaiters, with a hunting crop swinging in his hand. So tall was he that his hat actually brushed the crossbar of the doorway, and his breadth seemed to span it across from side to side. A large face, seared with 1,000 wrinkles, burned yellow from the sun, and marked with every evil passion, was turned from one to the other of us, while his deep-set, bile-shot eyes and his high, thin, fleshless nose gave him somewhat the resemblance to a fierce old bird of prey. "Which of you is Holmes?" asked this apparition. "My name, sir, but you have the advantage of me," said my companion quietly. "I am Dr. Grimsby Roylott of Stoke Moran." "Indeed, doctor," said Holmes blandly. "Pray take a seat." "I will do nothing of the kind. My stepdaughter has been here. I have traced her. What has she been saying to you?" "It is a little cold for the time of year," said Holmes. "What has she been saying to you?" screamed the old man furiously. "But I have heard that the crocuses promise well," continued my companion imperturbably. "Ha, you put me off, do you?" said our new visitor, taking a step forward and swinging his hunting crop. "I know you, you scoundrel. I have heard of you before. You are Holmes the meddler." My friend smiled. "Holmes the busybody." His smile widened. "Holmes the Scotland Yard jack-in-office." Holmes chuckled heartily. "Your conversation is most entertaining," said he. "When you go out, close the door, for there is a decided draught." "I will go when I have had my say. Don't you dare meddle with my affairs. I know that Miss Stoner has been here. I traced her. I am a dangerous man to fall foul of. See here." He stepped swiftly forward, seized the poker, and bent it into a curve with his huge brown hands. "See that you keep yourself out of my grip," he snarled, and hurling the twisted poker into the fireplace, he strode out of the room. "He seems a very amiable person," said Holmes, laughing. "I am not quite so bulky, but if he had remained, I might have shown him that my grip was not much more feeble than his own." As he spoke, he picked up the steel poker, and with a sudden effort straightened it out again. Fancy his having the insolence to confound me with the official detective force. This incident gives zest to our investigation, however, and I only trust that our little friend will not suffer from her imprudence in allowing this brute to trace her. And now, Watson, we shall order breakfast, and afterwards I shall walk down to Doctor's Commons, where I hope to get some data which may help us in this matter. So, that was the first part of the adventure of the Speckled Band with Sherlock Holmes. I hope you enjoyed, and it seems that Dr. Roylott is not a particularly nice man. Wonder what his deal is. So, I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you will join us again next time.